Hello everyone and welcome to this evening's webinar. I'm Claire Vandenbroek and I'm on the admissions team here at Escape Studios. Now tonight Philip Charles Sweeting presents the stealthy art of rotoscoping. Welcome Philip, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks, great to be here.
Good. Now you're going to be demonstrating exactly what the subtle artistry of rotoscoping is and why this is an essential entry-level craft for junior compositing artists. But before I hand over to you, just a bit of background about Philip. Now, Philip is a paint and roto artist at Blue Bolt, and he's been lucky enough to work on both film and TV projects in the last 2 years that he's been working in the industry. He's got a New York Winter's Tale and Robocop to his credits, and he's also just finished working on episode 3 of TV series Jamaica Inn, that's soon to air, and also a new TV series called The Game, which is yet to air. So certainly ones to look out for. Now we're going to be taking questions at the end. You can submit your questions into the questions box and I'll be asking Philip a selection of those questions at the end. I'll hand over to him now, but I will be back obviously at the end to do the Q&A and also just tell you a little bit more about what's happening here at Escape and the training we provide. But for now I'm just going to hand over to you. Let me give you the controls.
Hi guys. Yes, I have been a paint and roto artist for probably about a year now. I started my training at Framestore as a runner and then moved up into paint and roto. So what I'm going to be talking about first today is what roto is and what kind of space it has in the production pipeline. Well, roto is the art of cutting out, essentially, and I'm not sure why that's not, there it is. Yes, the art of cutting out and separating elements, whether you need to put something behind, as this reference plane shows, or whether you need to change the grading on something, or literally all sorts of things. I've recently been compositing my own shots rather than just doing the roto specifically, and that has been a bit of a learning experience, actually seeing the mats you create go into production and actually be able to use them yourself, which has helped me out immensely. So what do we have here? Well, we've got the foreground separated out from the background. Simple enough. Great. Okay, how would I approach a shot like this? Well, first of all, I would get the message from production telling me what needs to be done, what's going to happen with the shot, and usually that is terrible. They don't tell you in detail what you need. You need to speak to the compositor, or if you are the compositor, well, you need to speak to yourself. So, first question, what needs to be rotoed? It's probably the most important question. Second, how long for and how many frames, or on what frames? Third question you need to ask yourself, can it be keyed? Now, I've worked in places where you are allowed to key, and I've worked in places where they wouldn't let you key at all. On Robocop specifically, we were just allowed to work with splines. And yeah, we were only allowed to work with roto, which was really odd because a lot of it was shot on green screen. And in fact, one of the examples I have today is on a green screen, and it's nicely degrained and everything. But that's it's purely just for educational purposes here. Right. And the last question you need to ask is, how long am I going to be working on it for? That's also very important because, well, you need to know what standard to work to. Especially if it's film or TV and commercials are a lot more forgiving in roto, whereas film, it has to be pixel perfect, and they will look at it as though it's on a cinema screen and analyze every pixel to the nth degree. which is really, really, really anal about it. Okay, so after you've talked to the comper, you should be ready to start your shot. And yes, the first thing you do when starting your shot is to just play it through. Play it through and just look at the movement, look at what you're going to be doing. Actually, I missed out one of the first things is, and I'm looking in the wrong part. Sorry, this is the shot. Yeah, and the first thing you need to be doing is looking at whether I can stabilize this shot, because you only want to be rotoscoping as little as possible. You don't want to be fighting the camera. You will only want to see the movement of your subject. Okay, so we've got some nice tracking markers, and this should be stabilized now, which I did earlier in my Blue Peter moment. So now all we have is this woman walking with her nice in-focus legs. Next, now that it's stabilized, is we need to find a clean frame where the most of your subject is in focus and it's shown in the greatest detail. So this for the, is that the right or left leg? I think it's the right leg. Yeah, the right leg is most in focus. So we found our frame. And from here, this is where we will build our splines onto. And sorry, I'm just doing some stuff on the other screen. There we go. Right, so now we're ready to throw down our splines. A question most people don't consider is, what kind of spline should I use? Most people, and even senior compositors I've seen who didn't work in the industry far enough back to be a paint and roto artist and then move on to compositing, would use a Bezier. And in fact, a compositor recently asked me why I use B-splines, and there's a very, very simple answer. You don't want to deal with handles. Handles are another thing you have to key. With roto, you want to do as little work as possible. And so the easiest way is with B-splines. The second reason is because B-splines never work in right angles. And even if with the best tool in the world, you've got a fantastic plate, there is never anything which is a right angle, not unless, actually not even if you go down and cut out the bare pixels, because you've got subpixel color bleeding over. As we see here, the B-spline is nice and fluid, and particularly for organic shapes, it's perfect. So there we go. Yeah, that's the top of the leg separated out. And that is how I would do the top of the leg. Break it down into a small object. Many people, particularly when first starting out, would do something like this. And they try and go frame by frame, and it would just be awful. I mean, look at how many points there are here. It's just, there's no way to deal with that except by point pushing, and point pushing is very, very, very slow, and you're just creating way too much work for yourself.